Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to week 8 in CU 122. Chef Suzanne and I welcome you to another fine live session. This has to be the 100th live session that Chef Suzanne and I have done together, and it only gets better each time. So we feel lucky, especially with the opportunity to work with this class, because you guys are showing some great strides in your improvement. We're really impressed and very proud to be a part of that. So thank you, everybody, for all your hard work and your continued on-time submissions. We really appreciate that. Week 7, I understand, was pretty awesome and a lot of great perspectives. Chef Suzanne, how was week 7?
Well, I always have a good time grading. I mean, you just cannot beat cookies. Cookies. So me personally, I enjoy this week. I didn't take any pictures, but I actually made chocolate chip cookies last night. It wasn't until I was done that I was like, I cannot believe that I did not take pictures. I was just like, oh man, I'm really craving chocolate chip cookies. And I literally put none of that together. So thank you all again for me needing to eat chocolate chip cookies late last night. They did a great job. So I do have my ever popular presentation here. So let me find my little.
So you went to bed with the sugar rush.
I did.
Good.
I did. I found some new chocolate chips. They were particularly yummy. So I'm all about it. All right. So can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, for the students that I gave a challenge to this week, my challenge to those was to present their cookies if they were setting them out for Santa or Frosty the Snowman or whatever for Christmas or holiday time, and they did not disappoint. They did not at all. And actually, and Joshua also took my my challenge of breakfast for dinner to heart, and so he had breakfast for dinner at his house. Also a great example of some mise en place. So Joshua killed it this week. These, I think, are the kind of cookies that like stuck in my brain for days, where I just was like, I must have those cookies because they just came out so beautiful.
Nice. Those look great.
I know, right? And these two, and this is also a great example of don't crowd your pan. I did see quite a few of those this week. We're trying to put too many on a sheet pan, and then they kind of grow into one giant cookie, which no, don't get me wrong. There is sometimes a need for a giant cookie. But if you're trying to get a bunch of little individual cookies, you want to give them some room to spread, give them room to grow.
Yep.
Right.
Nice.
Also, and to me, like the epitome of the best kind of chocolate chip cookie picture is when you can see that little stringy line of chocolate and you're just like, oh, that's magic. So,
Jennifer's making us all suffer right now. You realize that?
Yeah, I love when I see the pictures and they have that. I'm like, oh, it's like a commercial. So Scott also took the whole Santa thing to heart with a Santa on a motorcycle and a glass of milk with beautiful cookies, and then also a gorgeous looking pie crust ready for this week. Nice. And I liked his pie crust because you can even see the chunks of butter in it.
That's going to be a good crust.
Right. And look, Sharon just happened to have, I don't know where Sharon lives, that Sharon was able to get a candy cane this week for her photo. But I was like, Sharon rocks. So I didn't have a whole lot of photos. Had a lot of assignments come in, not necessarily late, but they came in yesterday versus earlier in the week. So I didn't have quite as many, but did see some amazing work this week. So absolutely.
Hats off to everybody. You guys rock. Does anybody have any comments? Sheila, what's your comment? Sheila Reynolds. Sheila. Yeah. How about Denise? What's yours? What's going on?
I hate saran wrap.
Oh, you hate the white.
I have the hardest time with it. I can never manage it. Is there an alternative? Is there some reusable thing we can substitute?
Actually, Ziploc bag generally works pretty well. And in industry, we don't call it saran wrap. It's called plastic wrap. And generally, it's in sizes quite a bit larger, and it's attached to a roll that weighs quite a bit more. So when it comes to working with the plastic wrap, it's quite a bit easier than it is using that little house. Sound good? Alvina, what's up? What was that, Alvina?
They have saran wrap caps. They look like little shower caps, but they fit over your bowls and things. You can use those.
Ooh, I like that. Have not
They
heard.
sell them with the saran wrap. It comes in a little box, and she can use those.
Thank you for that tip. Thank you.
Yeah, and then we talking about the with my grandkids this weekend. A 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Food is a wonderful bonding experience, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Alvina. Thank you. All right, ladies and gents, anybody else have comments regarding week 7? Sheila, did you have a comment?
Yeah, about the flour. I think I realized I didn't know there was an extreme difference between pastry flour, superfine pastry flour, and ultrafine pastry flour.
Right.
And I think I realized that I used superfine for not this week, but the previous week. So my cupcakes didn't rise as high as I would like. So was that a big difference?
It's actually very little difference, and the reason it gets finer is to minimize mixing, so it incorporates quicker into your product. However, when it comes to pastry flour and flours in general, there's not a huge difference in the grind, and actually the finest grind you can get is what they call 00, which generally refers to a pizza flour. But you're fine with that. There's no major difference in industry. You're not going to run into that ultra fine and super fine and all that other kind of stuff. It'll just be pastry flour. We keep things a little bit more simple. So
okay, thank you, Chef.
You're welcome. Ladies and gents, let's get rocking right into week 8 here in CU 122. It's pie time. Chef Suzanne, how do you like this week?
Oh, this is another one that I am super excited for because this is one of those weeks where everybody really goes all out. This is the one where I'm like constantly calling in my family, oh, I got to see this. And this is the week that I know I sent you a bunch last block that because folks just go like nuts because there's tons of videos and things of pie crusts and different ways to do pie crust on Facebook and Pinterest. And so people have been watching those, show up in their news feed and like, I've got to try this week. So that's why this is, and I think I say it every week, but this is one I really enjoy because this is one of the weeks, and well, I'll let you talk about it, but this is one of the weeks where y'all will actually get a little bit of freedom. So.
Yep. And I know we've prepared a very nice slide with some guidelines that we're going to ask everybody to stick to before we get too much further along in the class. Let's take a look at week 7 real quick. Excellent work in week 7, everybody. You guys do rock, and Chef Suzanne and I really appreciate that, having the opportunity to work with culinarians such as yourselves. It makes our job worth it. So thank you so much. If anybody has any concerns in this class, please reach out regarding your grade. So make sure you reach out now. Do not wait to the end of the course to ask for help because otherwise it will be too late. So if you're concerned about your grades, reach out, let me know, and we can work something out to help you. We are here to help you succeed. So now's a great time to start talking about that. And then, ladies and gents, make sure you're posting attendance at least every 4 days. It is critical to your success in this program. The closer you are and the more you post attendance, you will succeed. And then over here, we have the most accurate pie chart ever. Pie I have not yet eaten and pie I have eaten. And I think my friend and my coworker might have had something to do with that. I'm not sure.
I might have added that since probably the last time you saw it today. I just thought it was just the best pie chart ever.
Yeah, and it is so true. Ladies and gents, for the remaining 4 weeks of their 3 weeks of this class, make sure you rock the house. Do not give up and do not slow down. You are at the beginning of your journey, so keep it going. We have some great quotes to share with everybody that are pretty inspirational, some food for thought. I think it is very important to have a feedback loop where you're consistently thinking about what you've done and how you can do it better. And that's from our friend Elon. Open-minded people embrace being wrong, are free of illusions and don't mind what people think of them and question everything, even themselves. Make mistakes, but learn from them. And I think the whole point of that, ladies and gents, is humility. It can be very, very helpful, especially when it comes to reviewing feedback and listening to information from your chefs. Making mistakes is okay, but not learning from those mistakes is not okay. And you will make mistakes, and so certainly make sure that you learn from them. Be humble enough, or show enough humility that you can reach out and ask for help. That's what we're here for. All right, ladies and gents, let's take a look at our week here in CU 122. Research materials, ladies and gents, make sure you focus on those, especially this week. It seems simple. We're making a pie, and I know that many of you have made many, many pies over the time, but there's always room for improvement and to learn a new technique. Follow this week's recipes closely. We have 2 knowledge checks this week. Don't forget, ladies and gents, you can take both knowledge checks as many times as you like, and only the highest score will stick. Thank you, everybody, for being here for tonight's live session. And then this week, we're making pies. I love this. I love this week. It's one of my most favorite weeks. And then our prep list this week. Ladies and gents, do you know if you follow this prep list, number 1, your assignment will be submitted early each week. And then number 2, you'll be posting attendance on a regular basis. And number 3, you're guaranteeing yourself success. So taking a look at our prep list this week, attend or watch the live session. Thank you very much. Read research materials tomorrow and complete both your knowledge checks. Get her done. And then read assignment crate prep list, timeline, and purchase mise en place. Do that on Friday. Takes a few minutes, but it's called organization, right? Chef Suzanne and I in industry, first thing we grab is a notepad and we start making notes. Prepare assignment, check against assignment page, and submit on Saturday and Sunday. Resubmit assignment if recommended by Chef Suzanne on Monday or Tuesday. And then Chef Suzanne, what does that say down there at the bottom?
Oh, I'm thinking this is a good week for pizza.
Oh.
We did breakfast for dinner last week. I'm feeling some pizza this week, so I'm kind of excited about maybe seeing some pizza pictures tossed in this week.
I like it. I like it. And I assume you're not talking about like Domino's Pizza Hut.
I hope not. I'm hoping we're going to see a couple of folks that say, hey, you know, I think I might make pizza this week, and take a picture and throw it in my assignment.
I like that.
Because you can't go wrong with pizza.
Nope. 100% success. Ladies and gents, does anybody have any questions about week 8? No? Everybody knows what's going on? Ladies and gents, don't forget this PowerPoint will be posted on the class page right after this class. So if you need to refer back to anything, it's here. Here is a lovely pink conversions chart for everybody to work with this week. It's in your PowerPoint. There it is. All right, ladies and gents, we're talking rolling out pie crust here. And we're going to take a look at a couple of different ideas and a couple of different methods of doing it. One of the biggest things that everyone needs to be focused on for this week's assignment is allowing yourself plenty of time. We have noticed that there are a couple of you that like to procrastinate and wait till late on Tuesday night to start your assignments. This is not a good week to do that because it ain't going to happen. So follow the prep list this week. Spend your weekend doing it, your early evening. If you can do it, start on it tonight. You've got the pie dough already made, right? Get your pie crust done. Run ahead of the game because you have to allow that time for that pie crust to come out, to warm up. You've got to roll it out. You've got to put it in the pan. You've got to bake it off, et cetera, et cetera. So it does take a little bit of time this week. So give yourself plenty of time to work with your assignment. You need to pull that dough out at least 30 minutes before going to work with it. That allows the fats and everything else to warm up so you're not tearing it as you're rolling it. If it's too cold, it's going to tear and it's going to be too difficult to work with and you'll end up overworking your glutens. Make sure that your work surface is clean and smooth. Whatever is on your work surface will end up in your dough as you're rolling it out. So you want to make sure that's clean. And then make sure that you have a clean rolling pin and all that stuff is good to go. You're going, after it warms up that 30 minutes, you're going to apply a dusting of flour to the work surface. That will prevent the dough from sticking. And then you're also going to apply flour to the rolling pin. Okay, you're gonna not a huge amount, just dust it nicely all the way around. So as you're rolling, that rolling pin is not sticking. And then you're gonna place the dough on the work surface, dust lightly with some flour to help prevent from sticking. And you're going to roll the dough out to about 1/4 inch as needed. And here's some cool videos that I think will help you out. Let's take a look at this first one here. Plenty of flour, people. So ladies and gents, you'll minimize the amount of time that you're rolling it, because the more that you roll that dough, the more that you're going to work and develop those glutens, and that will prevent the flakiness. And the more that you're going to get everything incorporated in there, and you don't want to disperse that fat all throughout the dough. You want to have some chunks of fat in there. So as it cooks, it creates those layers. We talked about mille-feuille last night, which means a million layers, or puff pastry is also the same way, where there's lots of layers in there, and that creates that flakiness. You'll notice that she did use parchment paper, which is perfectly acceptable. You'll also notice that she lightly dusted everything. So you want to make sure that you follow that same procedure. Here's another one.
Hang on, Chef. That is the key word, because that's actually something I talked about quite a bit this week in some videos when folks were making their pie dough. Lightly dusting. The more flour you have on your work surface, the more flour is going to get worked into your doughs. And what that'll do is it'll start to make your dough tough. And the tougher your dough is, the more likely it is to shrink. And it's going to start, because it'll develop, like Chef just said, it'll develop those gluten strands. So you have this, it looks great. Then you put it in the crust and you get your filling in and you pop it in the oven, and then you take it out and your crust has just gone. It's sunk down into the bottom. It's because there's all that extra flour. So you want to use as little additional flour, just lightly dusting. And if you saw her, now she did use, had it on a piece of parchment, and that's a great option too. But you can just roll it a little, turn it, roll it a little, turn it. And what that'll do is it'll keep it from sticking. You don't need all that extra flour. If your dough is super, super sticky, it's probably too warm. Like Chef said, you don't want it super warm. So you probably let it warm up too much, or there could actually be something wrong with your dough and you may want to start again. So the dough should still be really firm when you're working with it, because people think, oh, it's really hard. I'm really having to push down on that rolling pin. And you really should have to push a little. It shouldn't be soft, right? So just to kind of give you some tips, take it easy and be light and gentle with that additional flouring.
Yep, absolutely excellent advice. So, ladies and gents, now that you've got your pie crust rolled out, you want to go about 2 inches to 3 inches beyond the rim of your pie tin. You're going to have to get that up and off of your work surface and into your pie tin. Here's a cool little video that shows you how to do that real simple.
I'm Kelly Cindy with Epicurious.com, and this is how to roll out and transfer pie dough. You want to make sure that you've lightly floured your surface,
Lightly,
as well as the pie dough itself and your rolling pin. A marble countertop is best because it keeps the dough chilled, but a wood countertop will work well too.
That doesn't mean you have to go out and remodel your kitchen.
You want to roll your dough to about 1/8 of an inch thickness, and also so that it's at least 1 inch bigger than the size of your pie plate. If at any point your dough is starting to stick to the board, just add a little bit more flour. You can gauge the size of your dough by turning your pie plate upside down and measuring it against the outside diameter. Once the dough is rolled out, you're ready to transfer it to your pie plate. To do this, you want to roll it up onto the rolling pin. And then simply unroll it into your pie plate. Using your fingers, push the dough into the corners of the pan. If at any point your dough tears, it's no reason to freak out. You can just use a little bit of the excess to patch any holes. No one will even see it because you'll have filling in the pan. You can trim off any excess dough using your kitchen shears. And then you can finish off your pie dough by crimping the edges. You can do it simply with a fork by pressing the tines of the fork into the side of the pan, or you can use your thumb and your forefinger and push the two together. And that's how you roll out and transfer pie.
So ladies and gents, it's a fairly simple process. Make sure that you do understand if you do rip your pie dough, which might happen for some of you, and don't be surprised if it does, you can simply patch it. Just take a little bit of cold water, put it around the edge of the tear, take a small piece of pie dough, patch it on there. Nobody will ever know the difference. So does anybody have any questions about rolling out pie dough? Thoughts or concerns? All right, ladies and gents. Now we're going to take a look at doing a lattice topping. And a lattice topping is basically a checker, or where the dough kind of crosses over and creates that lattice effect over the top of a pie. It's a very nice, classy touch. It's very, very traditional. It does allow a lot of steam to escape from the product while cooking. So let's take a look at how all that works.
We're Adam and Joanne from InspiredTaste.net, and welcome to our kitchen.
This is actually really cool.
We're going to show you how to make a lattice pie crust. Roll out enough chilled pie dough to the top of a 9-inch pie. A 13-inch circle should do it. Use your favorite recipe or store-bought dough. You could also check out a flake pie crust recipe. Then measure 3/4-inch increments and cut into strips. They don't need to be perfect. Now it's time to make the lattice crust. It's really simple. Just lay 5 strips over the filled pie. Carefully fold back the second and fourth strip, then lay another strip of dough perpendicular to them. Unfold them over the new strip. Next, fold back the first, third, and fifth strips, then lay another strip of dough perpendicular to them. Unfold them over the new strip. Just repeat this until the pie has been covered with lattice crust. Trim the dough to within a 1/2 inch of the edge of the dish. Then fold the edges of the top and bottom crust underneath itself, creating a thicker border that rests on the lip of the dish. And that's it. Simple.
It is fairly simple. Just remember, she cut those strips out about 3/4 inch. They don't all have to be perfect, because as you're building your lattice topping, some will stretch, some will get a little bit thinner. If one does break, once again, just take a little bit of cold water, pinch it back together, and then you can lay it out one more time. And then you'll probably want to egg wash it before it goes into the oven, so it has that nice golden shine over it. Egg wash is going to be 1 egg to about 1 tablespoon of water mixed thoroughly, and then brush it on over the top of the pastry crust. As it bakes, it'll be nice and shiny. Chef Suzanne, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, it's already getting asked in the chat box, so I figure we can probably talk about it. Yes, your top crust is definitely somewhere where you can be creative this week. Matter of fact, we encourage you to. Yes, you can do your top crust with just the little 4 slits on the top, like a Mrs. Smith pie at the frozen section at the grocery store. But you could also do lattice or cutouts or something fun and amazing. So we'll talk about other stuff later, but I know that as far as the top crust goes, we're actually encouraging some creativity and freedom with your top crust.
Absolutely. You can have a lot of fun using different raw sugar to give it that nice crunchy look over the top, and then some of the other decorations are awfully nice. Now, ladies and gents, our pie filling this week is going to be what is called the cooked juice method. And we urge the use of a canned fruit, and let's take a look at this to see how it all works. The advantage of this method is that only the juice is cooked. So you're opening it up, you're straining out all of the liquid, and you're going to basically bring that liquid to a boil. Then you are going to tighten it with what we call a whitewash or a slurry, which is half cornstarch and half cold water, which you'll have the recipe here in just a second. But once that liquid comes to a boil, you stir in the slurry, it thickens it up, and then it becomes clear. Then you're going to add your sugaring and flavors and stir it until it dissolves. And then after it's kind of cooled a little bit, you're going to pour that back over your whole fruit, preferably blueberries, and then you're going to allow it to cool, and that will become your pie filling. So it's called the cooked juice method. It sounds a little bit fancier than all that, but it's rather simple. So it's just basically draining the liquid, tighten it with a cornstarch slurry, and then adding your sugar and seasoning to it, and then folding the whole fruit back in. Does anyone have any questions about that? Anybody? Anyone? Crickets? All right, ladies and gents, we just talked about egg wash a moment ago in reference to the lattice topping and to the top of your pie crust in general this week. Egg wash is used on quite a few different things in industry, everything from croissants to various breads to pie tops. And what egg wash does is when you brush it over the top of that product, it adds that nice sheen. Everybody's seen that nice golden brown GVD look to baked products that are nice and shiny, and that comes from the egg wash. In industry, they do sell a variety of different substances to create that egg wash, but it's always best to go with the real McCoy. So let's take a look at what we got here. So it's, as I mentioned a moment ago, an egg wash is a mixture between egg and a liquid. You can use milk if you prefer, or water, and I think it's about the same result on the at the end. And it's brushed onto baked goods before baking, and it adds that nice GVD, which is real important. So you're going to crack an egg into a bowl, and you're going to mix it thoroughly. Very simple. Add 2 tablespoons of water. I like to do 1 to 1, but sometimes people like to do 1 to 2, which is perfectly fine. And then a pinch of salt. You're going to mix that until it's nice, smooth, and well blended. And then you're going to take a pastry brush and egg wash that onto your surface. The amount that you apply should be just a thin glaze. You have to make sure that you don't have any pools of it, because otherwise you'll have pools of scrambled egg when it comes out of the oven. And then do your best to get yourself a pastry brush. In the restaurant industry, we don't use paint brushes. The health department has issues with that. So we prefer that you do get a pastry brush if possible to do that. If you want to do a darker egg wash, definitely add the milk or cream. Or some people I've seen before actually use just the egg yolk to create that effect. So that is the world of egg wash. Does anybody have any questions? Chef Suzanne, you have anything to add to egg wash? I noticed there's a picture of an egg washing here on the screen. Do you know anything about that, Chef Suzanne?
I don't know where that came from.
Are you taking the 5th?
Mm-hmm. I got nothing. I don't know where that came from. I like it a lot. So whoever put that there is super funny. So I don't know.
You sound like my son as he's standing there with a marker saying that he was not the one that drew on the wall. Right? It was not me. All right, ladies and gents, I know Chef Suzanne's going to jump into this next little segment real quick. because this week we are introducing the can and can't for this recipe. I've already had a couple of questions from some of you regarding things that we can do. We're going to ask that you stick within the guidelines that are on the sheet that we're going to take a look at. The reason for that is by following these guidelines, we're able to know that you have learned the technique, which is the most important thing. So you may substitute a different frozen or canned fruit. No canned pie filling, because otherwise when you're taking the pictures, it's not going to work out. And Chef Suzanne is rather keen at these types of things, so as some people have found out over time. Please do not use fresh fruit for this week's assignment. So if you're heading to the local grocery store and you notice blueberries are 10 for 1 or whatever, skip over it and keep going. Remember, if you are, no custards or cream pies. We've had this issue before in the past. That's a no-no. We are sticking to the canned fruit method. That's what we're trying to learn this week. We're trying to learn how to roll out pie crust, how to do the canned fruit method, how to do the topping. So those are the 3 things that we're looking for. Remember, if you change the recipe too much, you may not have the correct results, which may impact your grade. Proceed with caution, right? If people in your house do not care for blueberry, perhaps you have a neighbor that does. You won't have to go far, I guarantee you. The top of the pie should be lattice or solid with decorations, okay? There's several examples down here on the bottom. The lattice pie crust, I think, is a great technique to learn because it is applicable to making other things as well. I've made savory dishes with lattice toppings. I've made Linzer torts with the lattice topping and many other dishes as well. Please use a light coating of egg wash over the top of the pie crust. That is required. We just talked how to make the egg wash, right? Crack an egg, scramble it, add some water to it, mix it up real well, paint it on with a pastry brush. A light glaze is all it takes. Does anybody have any questions about the confines of this week's assignment?
They always have questions, so we'll answer those real quick.
All right, let's do it.
I know that folks are wanting to know, do I have to use blueberries? No, like Chef just said, you can use something else. It needs to be either frozen or canned, right? So if you want to use apples, you need to find canned apples, or depending on where you live, you might be able to find frozen apples. Do not purchase already made filling, because they do sell those, and a lot of times they're right next to, you may find canned apples right next to canned apple filling, and the apple filling is different. It's already got the cinnamon and the sugar and all of that added to it. You don't want that, because here we want you to make the filling, and so you've either got to use canned or frozen. So it is a good question. No fresh fruit, correct. For this, it is either canned or frozen, so that we've kind of got you looking at just a couple of different recipes from the book. So I see that in the chat. So no fresh. You can use any type of frozen or canned fruit that you choose. Obviously, there are some things that are not going to work. Pineapple, probably not going to work. But you can buy canned cherries. You can buy canned blueberries. You can
peaches.
Buy peaches. Oh my gosh, peaches, yes. You can also buy all of those frozen, including mixed berries, blueberries, strawberries. I know somebody was saying strawberry rhubarb. If you're going to use frozen strawberries and the frozen rhubarbs, then yes, but not fresh. Right? So those are just what we're, we are giving you lots of freedom, but we got to kind of reel it in somewhere. And the line we've got is no fresh. The kind of like we have a line of no cream filling, so no chocolate cream and lemon cream and all that. Not that you can't make those at some other time, but for this assignment, we're looking for frozen or canned fruits, not fillings. I think those are typically the biggest questions. So any other questions about that?
So we're going from a 2-lane to a 3-lane freeway this week, people. So we're gonna you have a little bit more wiggle room within the recipe. Just please respect those guidelines. Be very conscientious of the moisture content of the product that you are working with. Chef Suzanne mentioned some very important things. For example, pineapple will not work because pineapple has a very large or very high moisture content, and you'll end up with a very watery pie. And I don't think pineapple pie is too popular to my knowledge. So does anybody have any questions about that?
We have another good question. So wondering the difference, the frozen fruit was fresh at one time, but because of the way that this particular recipe is, if you look at the recipe for the blueberry filling, it's asking for frozen blueberries because you're actually going to need the liquid that comes with it. That's literally the first thing you're going to have to do is strain out that liquid, whereas fresh isn't going to have that. And so it's a very different process to use fresh fruit versus the canned or the frozen for this. And matter of fact, there's actually two different recipes. So if you're going to use, and Chef will show this to you here in just a second, if you're using canned, you're going to use the recipe that's for the blueberry filling we just saw. If you're going to use canned fruit, there's a completely different recipe that you'll need to use. So I hope that made sense.
Yes.
I see head nod, so I think I did okay.
That was right on the money. Let's take a look at those recipes, ladies and gentlemen, to see what we have. This recipe is for using frozen blueberries. You will thaw them, and then any juice that is generated, you're going to put into a cup. And you want to get about 125 grams of liquid. If you do not yield 125 grams of liquid when you thaw out the blueberries, add water to that liquid to get to 125 grams. And then you're going to bring that up to a boil, and then you're going to tighten it with your cornstarch, add your sugar, or add your sugar, then tighten it with the cornstarch slurry mixture. Bring that mixture to a boil. You'll notice it'll turn thick, and it'll be nice and clear and translucent. And then you're going to add the remainder of your ingredients, and then you will be ready to cook your pie. Are there any questions about that, ladies and gentlemen? Thoughts, concerns? Taking a look at another recipe when it comes to using canned fruit. This particular one is for apples, and you should be able to generate enough liquid. This particular recipe is asking for a 1.5 pints. So if you only generate, 1 pint, you'll have to add water to make up the difference. And then get your cornstarch slurry ready. Bring the juice to a boil. Tighten it with the cornstarch. Add your sugar and cinnamon and seasoning, and then fold the fruit back in. It's as simple as that. 1, 2, and 3. Any questions about the fillings, ladies and gents? No? Chef Suzanne, I noticed the recipe here is recommending to bake the pie at 450 degrees.
Which one?
This one right here, the blueberry.
Does it say 450?
Which seems to be a little bit on the high side to me.
I'm actually kind of glad you brought that up, Chef. That actually has come up in the last couple of weeks because we've been doing all of this, starting in this baking, and had a lot of students where I think their ovens are off. So I'm actually glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us, our ovens do not cook at the temperature that it says they are. So if we're setting our oven at 350, it may only be 325 or even 300. Or on the flip side, your oven may be hot. You may have the hot spot, and actually about every oven I've ever used anywhere is going to have the front and the back maybe a little different. So this is a really good opportunity to kind of learn a little bit more about your oven. Try and find an oven-safe thermometer to try and figure out what the temperature of your oven is. But I think that is the right temp for that recipe.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at the other one. It said 425. So I would stick with 425 if your pie filling is warm. It should cook in about 20 to 30 minutes. So make sure. So far in tonight's class, we've talked about how to roll that dough out about 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch thick. Roll it out beyond the rim of your pie tin or pie glass is perfectly fine to use. You're going to lightly dust your work surface, lightly dust your rolling pin, lightly dust your dough. Roll it out. Once you get it to the proper diameter, you're going to roll it back up onto the rolling pin, then you roll it across, right? Then you get your pie filling ready. Drain the liquid, bring the liquid to a boil, tighten it with cornstarch, add your seasoning, and then put your fruit back in, and then everything into the pie dish. and then either a solid top or a lattice top. If you do a solid top, make sure that you put holes in there to allow ventilation. It's very, very important. Otherwise, the whole thing will rise up and it's not pretty. And then also make sure that you do egg wash your product this week. We talked about that as well. An egg to 1 or 2 tablespoons of water, thoroughly mixed. Let's take a look at some things that we commonly use in industry. A baker's table, those are one of the few tables that are still made out of wood in the restaurant industry. So you will see these. It's a softer surface. I prefer working on these. It makes a much better product. In the restaurant industry, our sugar and flour, we don't buy it in 5-pound bags, people. We buy 25 or 50-pound sacks, so we have very large containers to store those. Generally, they're on wheels. So when you're in industry, this is what you need to be looking for. Very important. Rolling pins, some come with handles, some come solid. So it is really up to you about what your preference is. So there's different styles. They also are available in aluminum and in marble as well. Pie tins, we did talk about the fact if you want to use a glass pie tin, that's perfectly fine. However, in industry, you're not going to find glass pie tins because of breakage. So it's a very serious situation. The gray pie tins will cook a little bit quicker than the silver pie tins, so be conscientious of that as well. We talked about a pastry brush as well. Do not go out to the shed and get Uncle Jed's paintbrush. It's not good. Make sure that you get a regular pastry brush. And down here, you'll see this where it says pie weights. You are not using that for this week's assignment. However, there are a number of different recipes, such as quiche, that have similar shells called pâte brûlée. And we have to put weights into the bottom of it because we pre-cook those crusts. Those weights can either be small metal or they can be beans as well. And you'll line that shell with parchment paper and put the weights on the top to keep everything in there and keep it from rising. Does anybody have any questions about the equipment? No questions this week, Chef Suzanne.
I feel like they're just excited. They're like running through their minds what they're going to make this week because, you know, they actually have some freedoms. I kind of feel like am I cooking peach or blackberry or blueberry? I feel like that's happening right now.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Sheila Reynolds, what's your question? Sheila. You there, Sheila? Sheila. All right, Sheila, we'll come back to you in a minute. If you want to ask your question in the chat box, Chef Suzanne will get you an immediate answer right away. So ladies and gents, let's take a look at our week 8 assignment here. Make sure those self-identification photos are looking good. Chef Suzanne, how those been looking lately?
Photos? Self-ID?
Self-identification photos.
Much better. We were having some issues at the beginning, but much better. So just make sure your self-IDs are head to toe, full uniform, including hat, the whole 9 yards. And make sure you have the week and date. Sanitizer photo also. Make sure that the week and date is in there with your sanitizer. Don't forget those.
Awesome. And make sure that mise en place is OCD, right? Overly compulsive disorder. You want that stuff ready to rock and roll. Pie crust rolled out before lining the pie tin. And then pie assembled before baking. And then pie after baking and before slicing. Plated piece of pie showing the side view of the filling to demonstrate proper consistency and doneness of crust. And don't forget that narrative, ladies and gents. It is extremely critical. Once you're in industry, you'll be so thankful because you're going to be able to write menus with no problem using the proper verbiage and the proper description. Sheila, did you get your question answered?
I've got it, Chef.
You got it? All right, ladies and gents, does anybody else have any other questions? All right, we're looking forward to some great pies for week 8. Make us hungry. Get those pies in, please, by Saturday and Sunday this week. I think it'll make a big difference, allowing you the opportunity to resubmit your assignment. We're looking forward to it. Do not forget to refer to the page that says the cans and the can'ts, which will be posted on the class page under the weekly presentation here in just a few moments. I hope everybody has a fantastic week, ladies and gents. Take care.